So we'd like to call this regular scheduled meeting of the Santa Clara City Council to order. I'm Mayor Rick Rosenberg. We have present tonight from the City Council, Councilman Jarrett Waite, Councilman David Pond, Councilwoman Krista Hinton, and Councilwoman Janine Burton. We'll excuse Councilman Shakespeare for the while. I'd like to welcome everyone who's here tonight. Appreciate you being here. We'll begin the meeting with an opening ceremony and Pledge of Allegiance. Councilman Pond will lead us in that, and then the opening comments will be offered by Rakeem Keston with Solomon's Porch Foursquare Fellowship and St. George Interfaith Council. So we'll go ahead and go to that point. Would everyone please rise and salute the flag?
Repeat after me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sorry. Good afternoon, evening. Bow our heads. Father God, we just come before you humble to be your servants, Lord, and to be servants of our community. We ask you to prepare our heads, our hearts, and our mouths, Lord, that anything that comes out of it, Lord, would be to edify you. We ask you to bless everyone here, and we pray this in Jesus' name, and all God's people said, amen.
Amen. Thank you, ma'am. Would you please tell Reverend Jimmy we said hi and give him our best? Yeah. Okay, conflicts and disclosures, council. Is there any conflicts of interest that needs to be disclosed tonight, council? Anything on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and jump into the working agenda. There's no public hearing scheduled tonight. Item 4B on the consent agenda, you have before you the approval of the claims and minutes. The February 14th regular city council and the February 21st city council work meeting, and the claims through February 28th. And then on the calendar of events, remember we have a special meeting on March the 6th, and a regular city council meeting on the 13th has been canceled. Again, the city council work meeting has been moved to the 20th, and then regular city council on the 27th. Any question, council, on the consent agenda or the calendar?
I have a quick one. Brock, do you remember with our payment to Tuacahn that came out in this one, is that just valid through the end of this wrap tax period before it gets re-upped? I'm guessing that's what we signed, but I couldn't remember exactly.
I'm trying to remember back to when that was signed, that we'd give them the $5,000 a year. I believe it was for the length, I want to say 10 years.
Okay, that's what I remember too. So basically until it goes back to the voters. Okay, perfect.
And I think it was that's how long they could only do for, because that was when the sunset clause would go in effect, so.
Right, okay.
Any other questions, council? If not, I'd look for a motion regarding the consent agenda.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Got a motion by Jarrett and a second by Dave to approve the consent agenda as presented. This is a money item. Roll call. Jarrett?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Krista?
Aye.
Janine?
Aye.
Ayes have it, 4-0. Thank you, council. Item C, under general business, C1 is discussion and action to consider an agreement between Santa Clara City and St. George City Consolidated Communications Center. Lance is ill tonight, so we'll excuse him, but we did talk about this extensively at our last meeting. So is there any question on this agreement, council?
I was just going to ask if you had any questions, Matt, about the agreement or any concerns or anything.
No, I feel good about the discussion that was had at the last meeting. The one thing that was discussed in the last meeting that is not reflected in the agreement yet is we need to add the the currently agreed fee for the current term. And so that needs to be inserted, and then the fee can adjust going forward for each subsequent term. But so if the council wants to approve the agreement, I'd just say let's approve it subject to that addition, and then I can work with Lance to make sure that's included in the final version.
Okay, let the record show Councilman Shakespeare has arrived.
Sorry, Mayor.
You're good, bro. Okay, any other questions on the agreement with St. George City for the Consolidated Communications Center? If there's no other questions, I'd look for a motion.
I motion that we approve the agreement between Santa Clara and St. George with the fee changes to be included in the agreement as noted.
Second.
Got a motion by Dave and a second by Krista to approve the agreement with the fee to be included in there as presented. Any question on that motion? Money item again. Jarrett?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Krista?
Aye.
Janine?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you, council. Item C2, discussion and action to consider proposed partial plat amendment for Santa Clara Heights subdivision Plat M, lots 10 and 11, located at 1297 Canyon View Drive and 1305 Canyon View Drive. Jim?
Thanks, Mayor. Let's go ahead and pull the aerial up, the first drawing. Here we go. So I'll just go through this. I was just talking to Ryan Scholes, the representative, who's here on behalf of the applicant Melody Finlinson. And again, it's a plat amendment to Plat M of the Santa Clara Heights subdivision. So you see two lots here. If we can scroll over a little bit, you have Lot 10 and Lot 11 of this subdivision. And so Lot 10 would be gaining property that the owner currently owns to be shown on the reflected subdivision plat. So it would go from 11,935 square feet to 13,046 square feet, so 0.30 of an acre. And then Lot 11 is currently 21,205 square feet, or just under half an acre. That would remain the same size. Ms. Finlinson owns a parcel known as SC-SCH-M-11B in between these two lots. That's approximately 0.2 acres, or approximately 1,100 square feet. If you scroll down to the next sheet, we'll be able to see that in between. So you see that the original lot line would be removed, and the lot line would change to reflect what's really out on the land, the existing situation. So the applicant currently owns this. Our records showed the purchase occurred in 2020, and the entry number was 202-000-76189, according to the county records. So the proposed partial plat amendment would allow this parcel to be included within Lot 10 of the plat. And so that's a key. I think going back to the aerial is probably the better image out of the two. These properties are located in the southeastern part of the city on Canyon View Drive, and they're just north of Santa Clara Drive. We don't have any concerns that have been identified at a staff level for this application. We did send notices out to property owners within the Santa Clara Heights Plat M subdivision, did not receive any responses. We also posted the property with a notice or a sign as per state code. A few things, the building department has taken a look at it. A geotechnical report will be required for Lot 10 or Lot 11 if any additional structures are proposed in the future. So what you see there, Lot 10, you kind of see a boat in the corner. I believe the owner of the property is looking to do a detached building of some sort in that corner, but we cannot process a building permit until this area is included in the recorded plat or part of the plat itself, and that's why they're going through this process. And then Public Works, we have public utility easement. That is affected by the amendment that needs to be relocated. So as you saw from the previous drawing, maybe we can scroll back down to that. You can see the original property line and the utility easement follows that, it's going to be relocated to what exists out on site right now as per the previous drawing, so in its correct location. And then they will have to go through the process of submitting a Mylar and getting the signature so it can be recorded. All state statute requirements have been met. We did send the notice out. We did hold a public meeting with the Planning Commission last week. So on February 22nd, 2024, the Planning Commission held a public hearing and forwarded a recommendation of approval to the City Council. City staff recommends that the City Council consider granting approval of the partial plat amendment for Lot 10 and Lot 11 of the Santa Clara Heights Plat M subdivision, subject to the following conditions, and we just have 3. 1, that the applicant be required to comply with the recommendations from all city reviewing departments. 2, that the owner's dedication acknowledgement be signed prior to final plat recordation. And 3, that the applicant be required to record the amended subdivision plat and provide an electronic copy to city staff. So that way we can update our records. And so at this point, that's what I have, Mayor. I'll turn it back over to you. And Ryan Scholes with Alpha Engineering is here if the council has any questions.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Council, any questions? It appears to be fairly straightforward in cleaning up an existing situation out there. Any questions for Jim or the applicant? Any discussion? If not, I'd look for a motion.
I move that we approve the partial plat amendment for the Santa Clara Heights subdivision Plat M, lots 10 and 11, located at 1297 Canyon View Drive and 1305 Canyon View Drive, as presented with the 3 conditions.
Second.
Got a motion by Krista and a second by Ben to approve the partial plat amendment as presented, subject to the 3 conditions as presented. Council, any question on the motion? Let's do a roll call. It is a plat. Ben?
Aye.
Janine?
Aye.
Krista?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Jarrett?
Aye.
Ayes have it, 5-0. Thank you. Ryan, we're sorry about what happened to your cohort over there. Sad. I worked with Scott 40 years ago at Bullock Brothers, and he's been a good friend ever since, and so we're going to miss him. Okay, item number 3, discussion and action to consider a proposed phasing plan amendment for Quail Crossing and Coyote Landing at Desert Edge. Robert Smith's the applicant. Jim?
Thanks, Mayor. Why don't we go ahead and scroll down to the phasing plan right after the staff report, maybe reduce that a little bit. Ben Willits was made aware of this meeting tonight, as well as Robert Smith. I don't know if they're on the Zoom call or not. Ben did attend the Planning Commission meeting where we discussed this last week. So Robert Smith is requesting a phasing plan amendment, and again, the Desert's Edge project includes 2 products. You have the Quail Crossing and Coyote Landing at Desert's Edge. So you have the apartment component, which is phases 2 and 6, and you have the townhome component, which is phases 1, 3, 4, and 5. And so the applicant is requesting to begin construction on phase 3 before phase 2, to be allowed to go through the next round of affordable housing credits through Utah Housing. And so we have had a chance, city staff has recently discussed the project with Utah Housing, and it's our understanding that the next round of applications is due in June of 2024. So generally, or in the past, they've done this process once a year to get the credits. They're having a mid-year process this year, June, where you can submit in June. So the applicant, Robert Smith, is looking to do that. And so phase 1, which is under construction right now, and it's kind of the salmon color, you can see it's 24 townhome units, and then you have the roads and a lot of the utilities and infrastructure that is in place to accommodate phase 1. Phase 2 is the beige area that includes 60 apartment units and 2 buildings. And then phase 3, where they're looking to go to at this point, includes 44 townhome units on 4.04 acres. And it includes some centrally located open space, a detention basin, and the roadway improvements. And so You know, as indicated, as I just mentioned, Phase 1 does include 24 units, and that was put on 5.807 acres of property. Phase 3 includes a total of 44 townhome units, and that's on just over 4 acres property. So if you add those two phases together, you have 68 units on 9.85 acres. That's both phases, 1 and 3, and that equates to a density of 6.90 units per acre. And so calculating the project density is important as city ordinance, and we're going to go back, 2021-13 was approved by the City Council on September 8th of 2021. This approval included a density bonus from 8 units per acre to 12 units per acre because of the affordable housing component included with the overall project. Until the affordable housing credits are approved by Utah Housing, allowing for the apartment project to commence, the project density will be limited to 8 units per acre. And so recently the applicant went to both the Planning Commission, that was in November of 23, and then came to the City Council in December of 23 to get approval for an updated phasing and amenity plan amendment for phases 1, 3, and 4. So if you scroll down one more to that drawing, Council will recollect this. They made some changes to the phasing and amenity plan for the project. So phase 1 is of the amenity area that was approved back on December 13th, includes the clubhouse, the main pool, spa, and pickleball courts to be completed by the end of phase 1 vertical construction, so the last unit there. Phase 3, which is the green, will include a water play area to be completed by the end of phase 3 vertical construction. And phase 4, the purple area, will include a water slide area by the end of phase 4 vertical construction. If the phase 4 amenities need to change based on future economic conditions, the applicant will be required to come back to the Planning Commission and City Council for approval once he has more information to share. So in Arcadia, Robert Smith had indicated, and he developed that, and that's a project, right in the area. There is one water slide. This one shows 3 water slides, and now there's a requirement to have a full-time lifeguard on duty with the previous one, Arcadia. That was not required, so he's somewhat grandfathered. And so I don't know if he's going to do the 3 slides as shown or do 1 slide. We just don't know at this point, and we'll get more information on that when he comes in for his phase 4. Now, last week, on February 22nd, 2024, the Planning Commission held a public meeting and forwarded a recommendation of approval to the City Council. City staff recommends that the City Council consider granting approval of the proposed phasing plan amendment for Quail Crossing and Coyote Landing at Desert's Edge, subject to the following conditions. 1, that the applicant be allowed to proceed with phase 3 of the project, which includes 44 townhome units on 4.04 acres. Combined with phase 1, this equates to a density of 6.90 units per acre. 2, that the required amenities be completed in phase 1 prior to issuance of the first building permit for a townhome unit in phase 3. And then 3, that the applicant be required to come back to the Planning Commission and City Council if phase 2 construction doesn't commence before phase 4 construction is anticipated, allowing for additional review and consideration. Now, with Utah Housing, we got a letter. It was addressed to the mayor in December indicating that it was a good project, but it was beat out by another project, and they were encouraged to reapply. And so I think that's the applicant's intent. The density bonus was granted. If we go to the phasing plan, originally phases 2 and 6 included the 120 apartment units, so there would be 30 units per building. And so phase 2 has 2 buildings, and phase 6 would have 2 buildings as well. That's still their intent. If the housing credits don't come through Utah Housing, they would be required to come back and update their project plan and do a PDR zone amendment, and the same process they went through with the original rezoning of property and project plan and ordinance. They would have to redo that and update it to something that is found to be acceptable. But at this point, they're looking to just move forward with phase 2 rather than phase 3 because they're still trying to go through Utah Housing to get the credits. And so Mayor, that's what I have at this point to give you. I don't know if Ben Willits or Robert Smith are on the line, but they were both aware of this meeting this evening. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Any questions for Jim, council? Okay, the applicant, he's not on Zoom,
Do
right?
we have a-
No.
Okay. Discussion, any items of discussion, council?
I have a question. I don't know how to phrase it. I gotta think about this. Those are townhomes, right, that you're talking about? Do you know
Yeah.
the height and, all that? How tall is it? Are we talking this tall building, like
They're two-story, if I remember right.
two-story?
28 to 30 feet.
Yeah.
The zone allows up to 35, so.
They're in adherence with the zone change package that include the building elevation and heights that were submitted and approved originally.
That was part of the ordinance 2021-13. So the project plan required all of those details when they went through the rezoning process and plan, but we had to look at the height, the materials, the style, the design, the landscaping, the amenities. So a number of things were looked at, but I recall them being about 28 feet in height.
Is Desert Edge by Arcadia?
Yeah, it's across to the west.
Yeah.
It's that
Okay.
parcel that's been graded west of Arcadia, between there and 400 East.
And then to the west is 400, which separates us from Ivans. And then we have
Okay.
Northtown Road along the south.
And are these intended to be overnight rentals?
They are. So they were approved as short-term rentals for the townhome units. So the 120 townhome units were approved as short-term rental through the agreements and the ordinance that was adopted. However, the 120 apartment units are not. Those are not short-term rentals. The intent is those would be done at 50 to 80% of AMI, allowing for affordability. So if a rental, rents have been high. So if someone comes in and rents a unit for the going rate's 1,800, at 50% of AMI, they would get it for 900, or at 80%, maybe it'd be 1,250 or 1,300, but it's reduced because the developer or owner gets the tax credit to
Okay.
make up the difference.
It's not a
to create-
subsidy.
It's not. No, it's just a way the idea is, the state requires the moderate income housing plan and that we have a certain threshold of affordable units. And I think that was part of the thought process here when we went through this. We don't have anything else quite like this or any other apartments that I'm aware of, so. And we'll see if it gets built or not. I think he'll go a couple more cycles. If not, he'll have to come in with a new plan, so.
But wasn't the short-term rental kind of based on the affordable housing component?
Yes.
That wasn't
Yes.
wasn't that an allowance?
Yes, that was, so he got the density bonus because they were doing the Utah housing affordability aspect. And that was discussed also at the time of approval of the short-term rentals, that because they were doing the affordable apartments. And so that's another thing we've discussed with the applicant. If the apartments go away, then we may have to discuss the issue on the short-term rental as well. And Matt's been in those conversations too.
His plan requires the apartments, and it requires them to meet the AMI affordability requirements. Whether he uses tax credit funding or private funding is up to him. In order to achieve the goals of his plan, he has to build what's presented there. If anything wants to vary on that phase 2 and phase 6, it could be a significant change. You may not get any more units out there. So it's kind of, he's asking to change the order, which I can understand given the fact that he's still pursuing the tax credits and another funding cycle comes up. But in order for him to do anything different on phase 2 and phase 6, other than those AMI regulated income apartments, throws everything out. He may get one unit on phase 2 and phase 6 if he doesn't do the apartments. I mean, it would be that dramatic.
Oh, I see.
Just again, I'm assuming from a development side, he's going to proceed with
the apartments at some point regardless. You know, you want to go through and give the process, I understand why he would want to do this and continue through the process. I think the state is motivated to try to award these as the funding's available, and that's why they've added another, you know, gone every 6 months. My question comes, for whatever reason, maybe as a more legal, because as Councilwoman Hinton said, the short-term rental was approved based on the reduced rents of the apartments. Let's say for some reason that does come back and is trying to change that. These are sold maybe as a short-term rental, which a buyer is going to expect that. So Matt, maybe from a legal, we couldn't go backwards on that specific to those. Could we? I mean, if these are sold with that intent and that approval, as a council, where would we stand on that for retracting the nightly rental component of that? If he wasn't to
Well-
go through with the apartments.
I don't know that I agree that we couldn't.
Okay.
And the reason why is, you know, that short-term rental approval is a conditional use. And if the conditional use doesn't satisfy the conditions that it was approved under, I think it can be lost, regardless of who is the owner going forward. So, I mean, I'm speaking generally, but I don't know that I would agree that we couldn't do something about it. Now, this particular project, you know, we're talking about the order of how the phases are going to proceed, and I'm not really prepared to, you know, talk about how that would play out as this goes forward. But just generally speaking, I would say that short-term rental conditional use has got to meet the conditions from now until, you know, as long as they want to keep it in place.
And Matt, just briefly, the process we've talked about, and most cities have it in their code, and we do as well, it's revocation of a conditional use.
Right.
You know, if they don't meet the requirements, you know, a city can go through that process. So.
I think, and you'll have to forgive me because it's been a number of weeks since we talked about this, but I think that in some of our discussions about this at a staff level, we've talked about, you know, what's going to be built first, and that we should know, you know, before anything permanent, any kind of short-term rental is complete in there, that he's got his credits and that it's actually going to happen the way it's anticipated. But again, I'm hedging a bit just because I don't recall the exact timetable.
Yeah. And I don't want to I don't want to speculate on, hey, that's not going to happen. I just, in the question is, again, I would totally understand changing 2 and 3 because of the application. And I think when we went through the process, we recognized that the application for those tax credits it may take several times to go through it. I think we had that discussion and knew that it may be ongoing. There's a limited amount of state funds that after every legislative session, and so just talking through that, I'm kind of putting my builder hat on, but also my buyer hat on, going, if I'm buying those, is there risk? I think from a developer, you're not going to ever allow that, whether, like the mayor said, you either get the tax credits or you find other ways to fund that to make sure that you meet the master plan and the development agreement.
You know, going back to the when this was originally made a part of our density bonus ordinance, which is where this you know, affordable housing requirement comes in. I think that we looked at the ordinance. I don't have it in front of me, but the condition is actually that the developer obtains the tax credit so that they are governed by some other agency that's going to monitor the affordability condition. And
Yeah,
and we
that
did
was the code amendment that was
Yeah.
put into the city code.
Yeah, and we did
Yeah.
that on purpose because the city didn't want to be the agency monitoring that, right? And so the developer obtaining that tax credit triggers that agency oversight outside the city so that the city didn't have to come up with a way to monitor that. And so, even though we've said, well, the developer could find some other way of financing or making this work, I think the condition is, as stated in the ordinance, that he does have to obtain the tax credits. And again, the reason for that is not just for the tax credits, but also because the city council wanted that other agency to be involved to monitor it.
But there's other agencies other than the state that can do that.
Right. And so as long as the developer obtains something that has that tie to it, that oversight, I mean, that's part of it as well. It's not just provide us the affordable housing units. It's also show us what agency is going to be responsible for the
Because they're
oversight.
going to be monitoring who they rent to
Right,
and the amount
exactly.
of rents and qualifying the
Right.
renters and all of that. And I've talked to several groups nonprofits that do that type of work at the HAC meetings. Charlene, can't think of her last name.
Quail?
Yeah,
used to do that?
not Quell, but she does.
She's with St. George City.
No,
Yeah, no.
there's another one, another
Oh,
Shirley. She is
okay.
with a group that does this same type of deal. They find properties, they build units, they qualify renters that go into the units, make sure they meet the income levels and all that, and then they monitor that.
Yeah, that's a yearly thing,
Yeah,
because if
and
they
that-
increase their.
So there are
yeah,
groups besides the state. He has options
Right,
to do that would include the monitoring and making sure that the AMI is being met properly, other than just the tax credits.
right. There's income thresholds based on the size of your household, so.
But then that means private funding would not.
No, you could get private funding and then contract with this group to do the management and the
Okay.
AMI with the nonprofit. And I've got her stuff in my office. I just can't think of the name. But there was like 2 different groups that we talked to over there.
Okay. So if he goes through the June application, how soon after that June date can he anticipate whether he's going to get funding or not? Like how, would it be
I don't
another
know
6
that
months?
yet.
or-
I haven't heard. I know the last process this past fall, we found out in mid-December. So I would assume, because I think the deadline last time was November, so maybe within a month.
It was fairly quick.
Yeah.
60
yeah,
days maybe.
Yeah.
And under
So-
your conditions, you think he would have to complete everything in phase 1 as far as the amenities first? Do you know about where we are on the amenities? Would those even be done before June?
Well, this is something we've talked about. Yeah, they're aware of it, that they have to have their amenities in with the end of vertical construction. To get a CO on the last building in phase 1, they have to have the amenities in for phase 1. So this is just another, making sure that it is done, that they're not trying to skip to phase 3 and pull permits on units without having the amenities they've agreed to in phase 1 done. So they're working on them. We could ask, the developer's representative is here now. You can ask him that question. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Cody, do you know? Yeah, so, but they've agreed to be, we just talked about this in December, when we did the amenity plan changes, that they would have all the phase 1 amenities in before vertical construction is complete in phase 1 with the units, so.
Ben, do you know where they're at schedule-wise on the amenities?
Yeah, permit
You know the rules, bro.
Ben Willets. So yeah, the permits all finished, they're wrapped up, they're getting ready to mobilize in the next couple weeks. So to start the main phase of the clubhouse, which that plan doesn't show it, but it'll be the clubhouse, the pickleball courts, the tennis courts are no longer there. Those
Yeah,
are
the
now
next
pickleball
one
courts.
does, yeah.
And then a pool. So everything you see there is Jim's pulling it up in the
Kind of in the salmon
kind
color,
of salmon colored
Yeah.
phase 1. So
which
that'll-
is, which is a good amount of the amenities.
Yeah, that's the bulk of it. And the phase 3 and 4, obviously, which is the play structure pool slide area will come on later. So the main amenity will be usable, which will give everybody plenty of activities to be able to participate in, so. And they anticipate that taking probably roughly through the end of the year to get that done.
So that-
I didn't hear that. What, sorry, can you repeat?
The completion of that should be done by about the end of this year,
Oh,
so.
So they couldn't even start on phase 3 until the end
Yeah,
of this
phase
year,
3,
right?
we haven't even, the drawings are in right now for review as far as the horizontal improvements go.
Yeah.
And then we have to do all the horizontal improvements in phase 3. So
Before
phase
they
3
do
isn't
this
even going to
vertical.
start for probably till early summer. And then that's got another 6 months plus.
They have to put the
So
roads and utilities and all of that in.
by the time that gets finished, all completed, signed off, platted, it's first of next year. So for phase 3 to even have a pad that's even ready to go. So,
so that he can.
So
I mean, before he starts putting money into the dirt on phase 3, you want to get your phasing plan approved. That's why it's here.
that's why we want to jump before we can,
Yeah, I mean, before he goes out and makes an investment on the ground, starting with the construction on the street utilities and everything in phase 3, he wants to make sure he's going to be able to jump phase 3 above phase 2. That's why you're looking at it tonight.
okay.
and then, yeah, as Jim said, it's June, they now have another cycle through the state for the tax credit, so I would anticipate we'd hear by August-ish, somewhere in there, roughly.
Yeah, it was like 30 to 60 days, I
Yeah.
don't remember.
Depending on what, I don't know exactly what date in June, whether it's near the first or the end, but, so it'd probably be mid to end of the summer by the time we'd hear back from the state again, so.
Is the date on here when it was all started, September 21st, 23?
Excuse me, I'm not sure which date you're looking at.
That's when the amenity plan was.
Oh, that's when the amenity plan came in
Oh.
to be phased, was September of last year. That we came back and had this phase.
Well, I think that's when we started talking about it.
Right,
And then it got to planning commission November and council in December.
that's when it was submitted,
Yeah.
Okay.
so, yeah.
Any other questions for the applicant?
I have kind of a random one. So on the phasing plan, would you go to that, Brock? I'm just curious, like in phase 4, the like dotted lines in the parking lot, is that like a cement gutter in the middle of the,
Correct, that's just a waterway, so you have, because these are private roads now at this point.
The private driveway system there.
Yeah, everything in phase 1 and 3 are all public, and then coming back out, bisecting phase 5, back out to 400 East, that's all public. Then once you go internal to phase 5, 4, 3, and then over to 2 and 6, everything else internal is back to private. So those, yeah, and that 4 and 5,
Drainage, right?
that's
Yeah.
it's like a valley gutter.
Okay.
So that's how that whole area and those alleys get drained.
okay,
So
thank you.
Ben, is alley A here in phase 3? That's just an alley? That,
Correct.
you said all of phase 3 is public streets?
Well, phase
Is
3
that-
perimeter,
Okay,
Yeah.
that one would be
correct.
the alleys are private,
The alleys are private,
drives, things. Okay.
correct. Yeah, anything that says alley is private, and then the main loop, and then, well, this is now east and west because it's turned on its side, but north and south on the paper, going up the side of phase 5 and phase.
So pretty
1.
much everything front loads on a public street, but we have some rear loaded alleys.
Correct.
Yeah.
And again, that was all approved with the project
Yes.
plan and zoning.
Yeah.
Other questions, council?
So my only question is, if moving forward with phase 3, can the conditional permit be withheld until the approval of phase 2 for the nightly rental? Is
I
that
think
something-
that's a
I mean,
legal
that-
question. I can't answer that.
Yeah,
Could you repeat that one more time, David?
yeah. So if we change the order, go in and allow phase 3 to be built, can the conditional use permit be withheld until the approval of phase 2?
Well, I think that as things currently stand, the conditional use is essentially not active or valid until the conditions are met. And the conditions haven't been met until the,
Till the application?
yeah, so I mean, that's effectively the case already. I mean,
Okay.
they wouldn't be able to, do any short-term rentals of property in here until all those conditions are satisfied, which the main one being, getting the tax credit and being
Yeah.
subject to the housing authority. So, if you're talking about, adding an additional condition that, it'll be withheld from a particular phase, then we would have to talk about that.
No,
but-
I'm just
okay.
talking in general
Yeah,
for the entire project. Just changing the order of the phases, waiting for that. If phase 1 finishes out, where the certificate of occupancy is issued, but phase 2 hasn't been completed yet, then would that, because the other conditions hadn't been yet met, then
my opinion would be they cannot,
those would
they
have to
can't
be
go
owner-
forward,
owner-
yeah, they couldn't rent those short-term
Okay.
until those conditions were satisfied.
And I think if we get further down the line and it does become an issue, we have to notice it as reconsideration of a conditional use.
Yeah.
That's something that would have to come back.
Yeah,
That's not on tonight's agenda, but
No.
if we get down the line, that's something we have
Right.
to look at a later date, Matt, I believe.
yeah, and I think again, thinking back to our discussions on this particular change that's before you, I feel like that we felt reasonably confident that the changes that are being requested now are not going to necessarily trigger that you'll still have the opportunity to consider that if it becomes necessary, going forward, so.
But these would be sold under a nightly rental condition. I guess I'm trying to understand how that would work, because potentially phase 3 could be built. I mean, it's gonna be subdivided, you're right, it's gonna be subdivided and, the street and roads, all that, and then these are gonna go vertical under that. And that could happen.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the biggest thing then, to Ben's point, is then how do you market this? Because
Yeah.
you can't market it, I mean, this would even, phase 3 aside, this is even phase 1 we're talking about. Because
Well-
then you'd say, okay, you can maybe have nightly rental if another part of the project that isn't really part of the project happens. So, I mean, I'm just talking this out loud with everyone here, of how do you then even market phase 1 as a nightly
Well,
rental
you
or
don't.
not?
I mean, if the
So-
developer did market them in that way, that would be a fundamental misrepresentation,
Okay.
because you can't rent these short-term until those conditions are satisfied.
So then I guess
So I mean,
what-
that's an issue for the developer to consider in how
Right.
he proceeds.
So I guess what is that? Where does that, okay, and I'm just spitballing this out loud to say, okay, phase 2, let's say phase 2 gets approved through the state, they get the funding. Well, that's not the whole project of the apartments. So how do you say, well, only maybe half of these now are nightly rental because you haven't gotten phase 6 approved yet from the state to go forward with that funding? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So do you say, okay, well, we're only gonna be able to do phase 1 and 3 at this point, not 4 and 5, as far as nightly rental go, because phase
I
6
think
hasn't
that's
been
something
approved
we'd
yet.
have to consider at that point in time, because I don't know if they're going to approve 60 units or 120 units.
Right,
We
and that's
don't
what I'm
know
saying,
yet.
is if they don't, if it only, I mean, I think they're putting in for the whole thing, but
Yeah,
if
I
they say, hey,
think we
we'll
just
fund
have
half
to
of
cross
it.
that bridge when we get there, but
The math's pretty easy, we have 120 of each.
But I do think it's pretty clear that until that condition is satisfied, I mean, that conditional use can't be utilized. And so, Robert's gonna have to take that into account in how he proceeds.
Right,
Ben, do you know on his application that he's putting in June, is he asking for funding for all 120 or just for 60?
Well, as of right now, he's putting in for the whole thing.
Okay.
But part of that's also, I know, as he goes through the process and as they're consulting back and forth with the state, that can change as far as saying, hey, as they see what the applicants are coming in, is what's the likelihood of all versus half. So, and they, they're consulting with them as they go back and forth through this pretty closely to see what they feel the likelihood is. So, because obviously then on the last round, when a place like Switchpoint comes in and you see what that, I mean, that's a much higher up the list need than what this was. And so obviously Switchpoint's,
Was that the one they funded in St. George?
yeah, it's the one up above where the old Motel 6 was that,
Yeah.
that
And-
obviously is, again, if you're looking at the hierarchy of a list, that's getting people out of a really bad situation into a little bit better versus, hey, not that this isn't important, but I think the state looked at that as obviously being a little higher priority.
Well, the interesting thing with that is I asked Claudio O'Grady that. I said, are you funding things down south? Are you funding projects in Washington County? And she pointed at that one, that one was found to have a higher need because it's helping people with homelessness at this point.
Yep.
But she said this next cycle, we still believe that Roberts is a good project. In the next sentence. So I don't know. My concern is I'm up north quite a bit with family up there. And, you go downtown, you go to certain areas and you see all of these huge buildings coming out of the ground and they're all apartments, for the most part. And I just want to make sure they're not just funding up north. They need to be funding down south as well because we have need to.
So you can be a lobbyist for us down here, Jim?
Could try. I mean, the way that we're involved with the session, it feels a little bit like.
Yeah, man, I guess I'm still a little, I understand it all has to be built out to meet the condition, but but in a phasing plan, you're not gonna meet that, in a phasing of marketing, I guess I'm just a little uncertain how you would market it under that. I think, because the amenities are built to that, again, we're switching, tonight's discussion is just switching phasing because of funding. But this is probably a 2-year project before you're fully built out.
Longer.
Maybe longer.
Yeah, it depends on the market, but
Yeah,
it
yeah.
could be 2, it could be 5.
2 to 3 years probably. But you're marketing you're marketing 2 pieces of this. You've got a rental piece that the applicant will own, and then you've got a piece that you're selling and marketing and they're all kind of tied together. So I guess I'm just trying to understand, and I asked that question not specific to, hey, we want to really tie the hands of the developer, but more just, we've got to meet all this in that. And so there's, and as the mayor said, there's a couple different ways to do that, but I guess I would be nervous if I'm on that side saying, okay, now you can't rent these until those conditions, because that could be, that's probably, even on phase 2, that's probably the end of next year before those are completed.
Could still do a long-term rental though, right?
Could,
Still
yeah.
do a townhome sale or a long-term rental.
You could buy a townhome building and live in one and rent the other 3 out, long-term.
Right. So,
Right, but that is, again, that's a very different marketing approach if you're marketing it
Sure,
short
but
versus long.
I guess I go back to, the conditions have been established, and have been established. And so, this sounds kind of harsh, but it's kind of the developer's problem. It's not really the city's problem. So,
it was a
Well,
conception.
then we probably should have made the phasing plan the front. If the apartments need to be built before, then we need to tell the applicant now.
well, I don't think we're talking about the apartments having to be built. I think what we're talking about is the tax credits need to be approved, whatever the conditions are of that.
Okay.
So, we're not saying that all of the affordable housing has to be built. We're just saying the condition is the developer has to have the approval.
Yeah.
So potentially that could be happening in August.
Yeah,
And he had them once. The tax credits were approved initially,
I believe for
and then he
60
turned them
units.
back.
Is that right,
Two
Ben?
buildings.
Yeah, yeah.
So they turned
But
them back.
but I think it got Utah Housing thinking about the market and price points and everything else, because the way they explained it to me is it couldn't be built for what they awarded based on the
Yeah,
labor,
they-
the market.
They had awarded
You
it,
know?
but they came back, and by the time they had awarded it, and by the
Yeah.
time we were able to say, hey, let's truly bid this thing, it was right during that COVID crunch, and then prices went. And so there's no way we can build it for, it wasn't feasible. So that's where they said, okay, then just return the credits back and we go in another round. And so,
They've increased the amounts, right?
correct.
That's
Yeah,
how they've.
they had to adjust what their graphs looked like as far as from a funding standpoint, because as we all, I mean, and this was just for fun. It wasn't for fun, it was another project, but I went back and looked at some numbers from 2020-ish to now, and seeing and this is on horizontal construction, this is even vertical, and Ben will even know better on vertical, but horizontal construction, it's 40% higher now than it was 3 years ago. And so just on the horizontal portion of it. And so, yeah, it's, we're obviously in a very interesting time right now in the last couple of years from a cost of building standpoint. And I'm sure I know vertical's done the same thing. Lumber and everything else has just gone haywire, so.
And that's, I guess, a good clarification there, Matt, that as long as it's the approval piece, yeah, again, I've just got thinking of the process in this, going, okay, how do you market properly and still, but as long as it's that approval, I think they'll have two shots at it between now and, when you're selling units, or at least completing units.
Mid-year and end of year, they've got.
Yeah, I think they'll have both those, so. But I do think, Ben, I think that's critical that the applicant know that, his feet are a little bit to the fire to make sure that however he proceeds, that it includes that.
Right.
I think you're closer than August by the time you CO units 1 through 6.
Yeah, 1 through 6 will be CO'd before, but
Yeah, just so you know, we have permitted 1 through 20, units 1 through 24 in phase 1, and 1 through 6 is substantially complete at this point.
Oh, boy.
I'll have some good discussions tomorrow.
Tell him to watch the meeting, so. And call if he's got questions. Jim can take his call.
Well, thank you, Ben.
Oh, you're the expert.
I thought Jim was the lobbyist.
We wear many hats, Ben, other Ben.
Okay, any other questions, comments, council?
I mean, I'll just say I appreciate that Robert is still pursuing this avenue, because, yeah, we're depending on another agency to make this all work, and so we'll definitely hope that happens, but I just appreciate his efforts to this point.
yeah, and I don't want my comments to be misunderstood as saying that, the city and the staff is not supportive of what Robert's trying to do. I just think that, I do think we have to be clear that we've established the conditions. It's the responsibility of the developer to meet the condition, and so, and if the condition can't be met, he can always come back to the council and, and look at other options. But as things currently stand, that's where we're at.
Mayor, do you want a motion?
I'm looking for one.
Okay, well, I would move that we approve the proposed phasing plan amendment for Quail Crossing and Coyote Lane at Desert's Edge as presented.
Second.
Got a motion by Jarrett and a second by Ben to approve the phasing plan amendment for Quail Crossing and Coyote Landing at Desert's Edge as presented. Any question on the motion? Let's do roll call. Jarrett?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Krista?
Aye.
Janine?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Ayes have it, 5-0. Thank you, council. Thank you, Ben. Okay, reports, mayor and council reports. Ben?
Mayor, I've met a couple times with and just sat in the back and observed our historic district committee. They've been working very hard. They're meeting a couple times a month. They'll meet again on the 5th, and then following up, I think, on 2 weeks later, they'll meet twice in March, and Jim's heavily involved in that, so it's a tall task, and they're doing a great job on it, so those have been very, very good. We look forward to seeing the document, Jim. And I believe that's all I have.
Okay, Janine?
I was there at the Heritage meetings too, and I was very impressed with all that they've worked on and talked about, and they're very meticulous in what they're doing. I was really impressed and just got to listen to that. I'm sad because next week when they meet, it's caucus night, which is kind of weird. I didn't think anybody would have a meeting on caucus night.
They've got a deadline. Yeah. They've got.
And that was discussed,
It
and
was?
we have a committee that has a deadline to meet, and the folks on our committee weren't looking to participate, so they wanted to keep the meeting on the 5th.
Okay. All right. This was kind of fun. I appreciate the mayor and Dustin for signing me up like I wanted to with attending the RWAL, or you. Rural water. I've learned a lot today. I'm going back tomorrow. Today they had a meeting that was really interesting with women in water. I feel like I'm a badass woman now. I didn't say that, but that's what they called it. They called it that. That wasn't me. Anyway, it was really neat to be informed about everything that's going on. Now, here's one thing that I thought was really interesting. I spoke with Dan Matthews that was with, you probably know him, Dustin, WETX, W-E-T-X. And he even mentioned that he would love to come and present to our city council sometime. And I thought, wow, well, you're really interesting. He did present, and it was really good. But I learned something that is interesting, and maybe all of you already know about this, but you can take your excess water in the city, and they've been starting to make what they call water banking, and you can actually make money off of your water by water banking with your excess water and leasing it out to cities and whoever needs our water. And we can make money off our water. I don't understand it totally, but anyway, it sounded really neat. So that's something that maybe we should look into as a city, a way to make some revenue.
Not sure we can with the RWSA, with the water district, where we've all pooled our water together already, so it's not like we have extra water to lease out to another entity, nor an entity to pick it up because everybody's in the RWSA.
So,
But-
Mayor, he did pull up all these, he said, what city are you from? He put it in Santa Clara. So he showed on this map where our wells were and where we get our water from and all this information. I was like very informed from him, but he thought that we had
We have
a
some extra,
possibility of excess water till we could
well,
earn
we
money
have some
off it.
extra water rights right now, but we don't
Yeah.
have extra water capacity to deliver. So we have rights, but everything's pooled together with St. George and Ivins and Washington City. There's 7 or 8 cities in the RWSA that have all pooled their water together now already. So
Okay,
in a way, we've already done it as Washington County via the water district.
okay. Maybe we could even look at it further. I don't know if you'd want to, but it's just an idea. And then the other thing that I've been looking at is I'm going to be staying back an extra day or two. Thanks for allowing me to do that. I've been talking to the city manager of Ashland, Virginia, And Ashland, Virginia is considering being our sister city. And I know that Lance has been looking into a sister city in Switzerland, which would be really neat because they do international ones and they do American ones. So I asked them, I'm meeting up with them on Friday, I think that's the 14th or 15th, while we're there. And we're looking into the possibility of making a sister city. Now, the mayors will have to agree, and there's no cost to it. There are some things that you look at, like the reason I went with Ashland, and the city manager there was saying, well, why did you pick us? Because he wants to know. But what you do is you look at the same demographics, you look at what are some similarities within the cities. And we do have a lot of similarities, and then you have differences that could be very good at learning. They have walking and bike trails like we do, and they have BMX bike parks and things like that. They also, we have our farmer market all the time, the Fry's market, I don't know. We used to be more at that, right, where we had farmer markets all the way down the city street, but they have that, and I just thought that's really neat. We have our Swiss days, they have their strawberry days and their train days, because they have a main train station that goes through their town. And the thing that's good is that you learn from it. What it is that you learn to love the history and share the heritage and similar things with each other. And it's very good educationally. You can always have exchange students from our high school. They can do all different kinds of things. And what's really nice about this is historically, their city goes clear back to the Revolutionary War. And our students could go back and learn so much there from, the colonial days, the Revolutionary days, and Civil War. They have a lot that historically that we could learn from. I don't mean to take up so much time. But anyway, it is something that we're looking at, and there's nothing we're going to sign there. We're just going to get information like you suggested, and so that's what I'm working on.
Anything else, Janine? Have you checked on the fair assignment?
Yes, I've been looking at that. Councilman Kurt Ivey got a hold of me, and I think he's in charge of that. So he was telling me some of the things, and I need to get a hold of Miss, I forget her name, Anderson in the museum.
Sherry Anderson.
Yeah, okay. I'll be getting a hold of her this week.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Krista?
Okay, I have been going to LPC meeting. This is the last week of the legislative session, which is great news. A couple things have passed to help with housing. SB 268, these are waiting for the governor to sign, but they've passed in the House and the Senate. This is the First Time Home Investment Zone Act, or it's called FIZ. So watch for that. Allows municipalities to create a first home investment zone to provide affordable owner-occupied housing and capture tax increment to finance the objectives of FIZ. And it counts toward our moderate income housing plans. HB 572 is the state treasurer investment. I think that's the PTIF. That's also passed in both the House and the Senate. It requires that no fewer than 60% of the units in a development are affordable, and they have to be owner-occupied for a minimum of 5 years. And they're going to be working with the First-Time Homebuyers Assistance Program, so that's good news for homebuyers in Utah, I think, first-time homebuyers. And then the last one I'll talk about is SB 185, the Residential Building Inspection Amendments, the third party. I think it's dead, so I don't think it's going anywhere, at least for now. And that's the end of my report.
Okay, thank you. Dave?
Yeah, so I had a couple of people reach out to me, a couple of questions. Gary's not here, so I'll throw it out, but I'll bring it up again when Gary's here. But he was asking if the city had plans to implement a time of use for electric usage. He said Vegas does it. It's just a way to kind of balance out the load and stuff, so, anyway, I'll address that with, when Gary is here.
We
Well, I
have,
can
just so
answer
you
that.
know, we brought
We
it
have
up at
talked about it.
UAMPS and it has been discussed.
Okay,
Yeah, it's actually, we've contracted with UFS, Utility Financial Solutions, to work on that for us.
okay,
So that will be coming before us, I'm guessing, in a couple months, but I'm not sure on the exact timeline.
cool.
Yeah, they're working on redoing our rate, doing a rate study that was recommended last time when we did a rate study, and this is part of it, is looking at that as
Okay.
well, so.
Cool. And then the same person, like he knows that we increased our permit fees and our impact fees, but he's currently building a home, and his building permit was 36,000, and just a couple of years ago, his neighbor's permit was 26. So, but his contractors just kind of made it sounded a little high compared to St. George, and I don't know what anyway, he just brought that up and just wanted to know if we had looked at other cities and what they're charging for their permit fees and stuff, so.
Yeah, so we don't really necessarily look at the other cities per se, because every capital facilities plan and impact fee study has different projects in them. And so every city will have different things, and we just have redone a bunch of them. We still have a bunch that are being redone. We roughly redo them every 5 years. And those are just based off of engineers' estimates. So something that was done 5 years ago in 2019, cost was much different than now when we're redoing them.
Yeah.
And so that's been a little bit of the bump in some of our impact fees has been due to that. Just they've been redone, and new projects and new things on, and the new costs to them.
Yeah.
But no,
Well, and-
it does. I mean, they shared with me today an
Yeah.
impact fee, a building permit, and I was like,
Yeah.
in my head, I was like,
And that number would include the Conservancy District, which goes up $1,000 every year.
Okay.
So if it was 2 years, 2 or 3 years, that could be $2,000 or $3,000 as
Sure.
part of that, so.
Okay. Well,
So
and
are-
I know that we had just recently visited that, so.
Are we comparable? Are we comparable to other cities then with permit fees?
honestly, I don't know where we are on impact fees,
Yeah.
because they're just, can be so different based on the projects and needs and growth.
Well, and if the, St. George, Washington, Ivans, if they go through a similar cycle, a 4 or 5 year cycle, if they're doing their adjustments, their timing may be off from what ours is.
But no, yeah, you'll have streets is in the process though. Streets is being done, parks is being done, stormwater are all in process
Okay.
right now.
Cool. And then I had somebody else reach out to me. She lives just outside of Goobler Park, concerned about the lighting and how frequent the lights are on when there's nobody in the park. And she had actually detailed out the first 2 or 3 weeks of the month of February when the lights were on for 12 plus hours and there was nobody in the park. And some of those, especially at night and early in the morning, I hear from all the residents along there. But it's concerning to the residents when those lights are on and what the cost is to the city to run those lights when there's nobody in the park.
Yeah, they shouldn't be on for 12 hours a day. I mean,
No, like 12 hour, like a combined
Oh,
12 hours
yeah.
over that 2 week period when, and like I said, she lives right outside the park, so she can see when people are in the park and occupying the park and.
yeah, and Ryan can probably speak more to it, but I know during the winter months when it's dark, they kick them on in the morning so staff can move around in there. So whether they're there, if they're not, then we should be responsible and say if we're not going to be there, we can shut them off.
Yeah.
But they are on a timer, I believe, to come on every day during the work week to be on in that morning. So there's light so they can go about doing their job when it still is dark at that time. But I can work with Ryan to make sure if they're not going to be in there, let's just shut them off and not have them come on. So
Well, I think in the past, the main concern's been on the weekends when we have tournaments. So when we have tournaments, they're paying for the lights
Okay.
And they're paying from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. They have to be off at 11, they know they're on a timer.
Yeah.
And the directors, every tournament's different, every director's different. Some of the directors are there getting stuff ready at 6 o'clock, whether we're there or not.
Okay.
So some of them, that's why the lights are on. We've actually recently readjusted to 6:45 because the guy will come in at 6, and if they're using the fields down here, they'll swing by there. Usually there's nothing to do there, but they've got to go double check and then get up to Goobler. So that extra 45 minutes gives them plenty of time to do whatever they need to do down here before they get up there. And we've had this problem a lot. Goobler complex is a big area.
Yeah.
I've been up there when I know somebody's over there on field 4 and I can't see them. Just because we can't see them doesn't mean they're not there. And it's a safety issue. You know, they might be over at the shop getting their equipment and getting out there and everything else. But we've tried to adjust it to where it works with the directors and with, you know, everybody that we can.
Sure.
So, I mean, it has been an ongoing issue, but when we have them reserve and pay for the lights for the tournament, they get upset that the lights aren't on when they're there.
No, and that's a message that I'll relay back to this resident that on the tournament weekends that's not on our bill. So
Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know.
And if it is during the week, you know, I'll talk with Dane. He's the one that schedules all the lighting, but usually during the week, they meet down at the shop. They don't get up there. They don't need to be on right at 6 o'clock. I mean, they don't start till 7 when it's dark anyway, so.
Yeah,
I'll make sure it's not during the week. But
Yeah, and it varies from week to week, and
Yeah.
some weeks, you know, some weeks I see them on because I'm right off of there too, but it's not a big a hindrance, or you know, not as big a bother to me
Yeah.
as it is to some of the.
And I'll double check, just,
But yeah,
it never hurts to double check the scheduling, because sometimes, you know, you can get off. But I'll have him double check and make sure that they're not on when we don't need them on.
daylight savings is in 2 weeks. So anyway, that's all I had. So thanks for the clarification on those things and the update.
Thanks, Dave. Jared?
So let's report on our mural progress. Krista and I and Ryan were able to go to the art club during lunch at the high school this week, and they presented these examples. They've been working on it for a while. These are just made with markers and like colored pencils, things like that. So you can touch it, she said. You can really have a good look at it. And they did want input, and we didn't have any. They came to City Hall and took pictures of different things on our walls and really tried to incorporate a lot of history. They're going to have 2 young ladies that are actually Native American paint the Native American portion of it. I was just really impressed with everything they'd worked on. We did talk about the roof because that's not in the renderings. And the thought is that we discussed just, you know, this could change, but the idea was that we would have city staff power wash the whole tunnel when they're about to start, and then that we would put down a base coat of just like baby blue through the whole tunnel, including the roof. And then that'd be their base to start painting off of. So we didn't discuss any actual paint beyond that on the roof, but at least that would create a cohesive mural. And then we just talked about a few other things like timing. She said that they would start, she didn't give an exact start time, but they said it'll probably go through the summer. It'd be a summer project for some of these students, and it might even go into the next school year. But the idea was that this would be like an amazing thing for those students for their portfolios when they're applying for college. So they're highly motivated to do a really good job.
I'm assuming you won't have to close the tunnel during the painting process. We'll be able to rope them off to keep them safe and the bikers from coming into the tunnel and
We haven't
running
discussed
into
that, to be
scaffolding.
honest.
You may want to have that discussion just from the public safety side of it as well as the artist safety.
We can put some signage, put some sign out before the tunnel and everything, let everybody know that, hey, there's people working in here.
Probably.
And also let the students know there are going to be people coming through, so.
Yeah, and
not
we may do one side at a time.
I think they're going to do one panel at a time, one section at a time. What we're worried about, and kind of what she talked about, was she's got individual students during different segments and just have them going at it. But main concern with that is, at least in my mind, get one part done, get the protective coating on it so it doesn't get graffitied and ruined and moved on to the next one. Because if you kind of got to go on, kids get ideas, oh, I'm going to come in here and paint too. So I think that was her idea, is just do a section at a time.
Okay. Yeah, just be careful with your signage and stuff, because I've seen some bikes coming through there.
Yeah, really rip through there, come down that hill, for sure. A couple other things that we need to think about. This is, Ryan could probably work on this, but they asked if we could get permission from the retirement home for parking, because that's really close.
Cody, you want to work on that?
The idea would be just
Yes, sir.
just a couple cars.
That one's easy.
Consider
right
it
there.
done.
Code enforcement.
And then the other one that's a little bit more of an ask was they would love to have access to some, like a hose, like water.
Cody, you want to work on that?
If there's a spigot somewhere nearby,
There's got to be some type of a deal on that side. That'd be the closest one. You can do a hydrant?
okay.
Oh, just be careful when you're pulling it off a hydrant, because that's high pressure.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, well, that's good to know, for sure. But yeah, please look at them if you have any suggestions. I think Ryan's our main contact with the school, and so,
They look great. The only comment that Janine made it was the balloons. We don't have any balloons yet, but I don't know that I would take them off. Maybe we'll get them one of these days.
That'd be fun.
I've seen one come up over Black Desert,
There you go.
so we'll just need to get them out here. more,
Just
I
seeing the
guess.
future.
Yeah,
Do we need
I
a
think it
Santa
looked
Clara balloon? Is that what we need?
that's what we need next. I thought Ben was wanting to buy
Put
one.
it in the
of those.
budget.
okay. But yeah, I'm very excited for this. I think it'll be a wonderful addition to our city. And other than that, been attending the meetings with Ivans on the fire department. I think those have been productive. We're learning a lot, and yeah, we're gonna hopefully find a good solution to that. And I think that's it.
Okay, thank you, sir. Couple of things. I attended the Transportation Expo with Dustin, and then also did the Dixie MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization meeting for the DTEC. Talked about some of the trail counter. They've got a new trail counter system in place. They're doing trail counts, and the numbers that using the trails are really high. So it's still an extremely popular thing going on down here. They gave an update on the Transportation Expo and on the Northern Corridor SES. We've got another meeting coming up on the Northern Corridor later this month, or next month in March, that I'll be attending. You guys all got a letter from the county night before last. Just so you know, we've got a follow-up meeting with the county commission tomorrow at noon to go in there and have a discussion with them. So I'll give you feedback on how that goes. I don't know if there might be a little bit of miscommunication on the part of the county on what we're actually charging with those fees that were approved on January 10th. So we're gonna go in and have a little meeting with them and see how that goes, and I'll report back how it goes to you guys after it's happened. But it is scheduled, so. And anything else I need to report on? I don't think so. Brock, have you got anything?
Yeah, just on Utah League of Cities and Towns Spring Conference is April 17th through the 19th. Registrations now is open. That's a Thursday, or Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. If you would like to attend, let me know.
I will.
And I'll get you registered.
Can we just tell you now?
Yep.
I
Happy.
want to.
So Jared and Janine. Also, I'll just say, in conjunction with this art, the mural, the high school, I've had a conversation with the assistant principal, Kyle Campbell, who is going to be the new principal. The principal, Monkers, is going to Crimson Cliffs. He would love to have you as council come to the high school and kind of meet with them, maybe meet with some of the staff, but also walk the halls, kind of see the students. Students can see you there and understanding that, hey, these are people that they're part of the community and they're concerned and worry about the students and stuff. And so he would think that would be a good thing too, to have the council come one day and spend a little bit of time at the high school. So if you guys are up for that, I will work on getting some times that would work with them. So
It'd be nice to have the youth council with us when we walk the halls.
Yeah. I'll tell them. So
Maybe the princesses, I don't know. Do we have a schedule on the princess pageant yet?
No,
Haven't heard
I don't.
anything.
I haven't heard anything. When do they usually have it?
It's in the spring. So sometime between now and when school gets out.
Who do I contact?
Monica Bracken.
I can send your contact.
Oh, okay, that'd be great.
But it'd be good to have just some of the students that are there. Well, if we're in there walking the halls, to have some of them, they can be our guides.
yeah. Okay. That's all I had.
I have a question, Mayor.
Mhm.
I don't know what does it mean by annual wrap tax for Tuacahn?
When the RAP tax was first approved by the voters,
Yeah,
it was a 10-year period. Tuacahn came to the city and requested an annual payment to Tuacahn because of the amount of sales tax revenue that they put into the local economy.
okay.
And so we actually have an agreement with Tuacahn to pay them
5,000.
$5,000 a year that was negotiated right when the RAP tax was incorporated.
Okay.
At the end of that period, and we'll have to talk about it, whether we continue to fund it, the RAP will be coming up again when?
The wrap approvals, usually usually in July after the fiscal year ends.
No, but the tax itself.
Mayor, did you
Oh,
want to mention what RAP stands for too? I wonder if that.
Oh, it's recreation and,
Arts and Parks.
yeah, recreation, arts and parks, so.
Okay,
It's like the ZAP tax up in Salt Lake County, Janine.
okay.
They collect money, we get a segment of it, we put it out for applications, so local arts or recreation projects like Shakespeare in the Park has got money in the past, the Historical Society has got money in the past for their hands-on. We give the Tuacahn, anything we don't spend, we put into recreation, into the parks budget.
Yeah,
And most of the money, I think, that we've collected off RAP has gone into the parks budget to help with the parks and stuff.
nice.
But that'll be coming up for renewal when? It's got to be coming fairly quick.
Yeah, I'm looking to see if I can.
No, I mean the renewal of the tax itself. I don't think that's an automatic renewal. I think
Yeah.
that was
It
a
looks
10-year
like,
thing.
just a quick thing I see from St. George News, looks like maybe in 2025,
Yeah, so
so next year.
in a couple of years, that'll come back and I don't know if it has to go to the voters again to get reapproved, reauthorized.
Yeah, it does.
I think it's been a good program for the cities, and like 40% of the taxes that are paid by visitors, tourists. So it's a little less impactful on the residents.
Yeah,
And the benefits, we've spent money, like the BMX track was RAP tax funded. Parking lots have received RAP tax money. It's gone into some good programs. Okay, Matt, do you have anything? Anybody over there got something burning a hole in their pocket? Okay, that's what we like to hear. No executive session?
No.
I just need a motion to adjourn, council.
I motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Got a motion by Janine, a second by Jared. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Perfect. Less than an hour and a half. Good job, council.
New computers, and I'm just gonna bust them up. Oh, my goodness. kids right now. They're probably playing right now.
I mean, we want to put a recognition plaque on it,
Dixie played their worst.
Oh, yeah.
so figure out where you want to put that, probably on one of the wing walls. And then make sure they got names to go on it, all that fun stuff. See, I don't have a problem with them doing it like.
No, they, and they're,
But I